in this lesson we are going to learn how to read chord diagrams for guitar, some basics on strumming technique, and how to switch cleanly and clearly between chords. So, a chord is when you play a group of notes together at the same time, like this. And a chord diagram shows you how to play a chord. So we're going to start with two chords in this video. We're going to learn the A chord and the E chord. So the A chord looks like this. I have nicknamed it the scrunchy finger chord because you have to squeeze all three of your fingers together onto the second fret. So let's look at the chord diagram for that chord. So the way that you're looking at a chord diagram is it's a picture of like the first 3 or 4 frets of your guitar from the nut to about here, right? So you have your strings running vertically this way, and you have your frets running horizontally like that. So this is the nut here. This is the first fret. This is the second, the third, the fourth. If you see a big O, a big circle, that means to play the string open. If you see an X, it means don't play that string. And there are numbers below to tell you which finger to use. So 1 would mean to use your pointer finger on your left hand, 2 is for your middle finger, 3 is for your ring finger, 4 would be for your pinky. So I'm going to show the A chord diagram, and if you see, when you line it up, when I'm playing the A chord on the guitar, you can see the 1 for the pointer finger, the 2 for the middle, the 3 for the ring finger. I'm on the D string, the G string, and the B string, and I'm all on the second fret there. So that's my A chord shape. And again, you can think of it as the scrunchy finger chord with all 3 of your fingers squeezed together. Now I'm going to display the diagram for the E chord. So the E chord also has 3 fingers. All right, so what's going to happen is you're going to put your pointer finger on the first fret of the G, which is the 3rd one from the thin E. My ring finger goes on the 2nd fret of the D, and my middle finger goes on the 2nd fret of the A string, and it should look like that, and it should match up with the diagram. Now notice when you were looking at the A chord diagram, there was an X on the top string, which means you're only going to strum 5 strings on that chord, because this is your A string, and you're playing an A chord. So the A string is the root of your A chord. Now, when you go to the E chord, you can strum all of them because this is your E string and that is the root of your E chord. So you always want to strum from the note that is the root of your chord, and the root is just what the chord is named after. So if it's an A chord, the root is A. If it's an E chord, the root is E, etc. So a lot of my beginner students have a little trouble getting their chords clean and clear. So here's a couple tips, some things that you want to have a little checklist to check off every time you're playing your chords. So here's my A chord shape, and sometimes you might play it and you might hear some muted strings or some things don't sound so clear. So here's 3 things that you want to look for. Number 1, make sure that your fingers are close enough to the frets. So if you take one finger here, like I'm playing this note, here's my 2nd fret. If I move that back, you hear how it gets buzzier? If I get close to that metal strip, not on top of it, but just behind it, there's this sweet spot where if I hit it, the note's going to resonate and sound really nice. Back this way, if I slide my finger back on the back of the fret, then it's going to sound really buzzy and not clear. So you notice when I'm playing this chord that all my fingers are really close to the fret, as close as I can get them. Number 2, you want to press down with enough pressure. So that squeeze, that vice grip between your thumb and all of your fingers, it's this squeezing motion. And when you squeeze it together, you should have enough pressure so it sounds nice and clean and clear. So if you're not pressing down hard enough, it could sound a little muted. The 3rd thing is use your fingertips to press. So talk about this finger curl. Like you can see that my fingers are literally curled like this onto the fingertips, right? Some of my students, they do this where they go backwards a little bit and they bend the other way, or they flatten their fingers out like that. What you want to do is get them all up on the tips and bend at this joint so there's a little bit of a curl there. So that's another thing you can pay attention to. So if you don't know which finger is causing the problem, you can take your pick and you can play each individual note, and if there's one that's buzzing a little bit, then you know, oh, I need to press down a little harder, or you can make the corrections a little easier once you know who the culprit is, right? But your chord should sound nice and clean and clear as you pick the individual notes out. Here's my E chord. And that takes a little bit of time and a little bit of practice. All right, so switching chords, right? This is another thing that my beginners have a lot of trouble going from one to the next. But that's an important part of the equation if you want to play songs. So the first thing I recommend is just warming up and changing the shapes with your left hand only, not even using your right hand. Just finding where your fingers need to go and seeing how fast you can go from one to the next. So here's my A, here's my E, here's my A, here's my E. And you want to be able to switch them in a split second going from one to the next, like that. Because once your left hand is doing its job, it's easier for the right hand to come into the equation. You can also practice one at a time. You can put your fingers on the A, take your hand away, put them back on, take them away, play a little game with yourself, take them away, put them on the E chord, take them away, see if you can find that chord again and how fast you can find that chord. And this is something you can do when you're watching TV at night and you're just chilling out or something. You know, just pick up your guitar and just practice your chord switching like this, back and forth. Now the next step is to try to give each chord 4 strums and then switch. So I'm starting with my A chord, 1, 2, 3, 4, switch to my E, 2, 3, 4, switch to my A, 2, 3, 4, switch to my E, 2, 3, 4. Now you notice with my pick, I'm only doing down strums, just very easy, very simple down strums. And I'm kind of angling my pick up a little bit if you watch that, if you can see that. I'm not straight up and down raking across the strings. I'm just sort of gently brushing against the strings. You don't have to, really dig in. You can just nice and soft, subtle, simple. And remember, your A chord, you're only strumming 5 strings, and your E chord, you're strumming all strings. So some other tips about chord switching and strumming at the same time. Another thing you can do is just do 1 down strum and count to 4, and then switch to your next chord with 1 down strum and count to 4 like this. So I'm gonna hit the A, 1, 2, 3, 4, switch to E, 2, 3, 4, switch to A, 2, 3, 4, switch to E, 2, 3, 4. Another thing you can do is leave out the 4th beat of the measure so that you have time to switch your chord. Because a lot of times people can't switch while they're still strumming. It's kind of a confusing thing. So watch this. If I go 1, 2, 3, rest, switch, 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 and back. So I have further play-alongs in the next section, isolated videos so that you can practice each of those things. You can practice just giving 1 strum and then switching. You can practice giving 4 strums or just 3 and leaving the 4th beat out. All different ways so that you can practice switching between these 2 chords, because the next section I'm going to give you a couple of easy 2-chord songs that use the A and the E. So you're going to want to be able to switch between those chords pretty easily. All right, I'll see you at the next one.